Hello, 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 and welcome back to Breakdown. My name is Tamara J. Madison, and I am your host for Breakdown, the Poet and the Poems, a show where a poet helps us to break down poetry as inspiration for our everyday lives. In this particular episode, we have Dr. Nagueyalti Warren, and she's discussing her book, Lodestar, with us. Now, I'm going to tell you, this episode was different than all of the other episodes I've ever done. I think it might even be a little bit haunted, but blessedly and positively so. So if you're curious and you want to know, and you want to delve into the idea of ancestors and how we are related to them, go ahead on, grab your coffee, your cup of tea, your snack, whatever you need, and come on and join us for the next breakdown. All right. So welcome, Dr. Nagueyalti Warren to Breakdown. Thank you so much for being a guest on this platform. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I just want to let the audience know we have been testing equipment and we've been finding a mysterious echo on this line. We were testing it right before we turned on record. So if by chance you hear that, we're just going to claim that it's some ancestors that are blessing the space and we're going to keep it moving. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm always amazed when somebody says yes to doing this for me. So I'm very grateful for you, your work, and your time. And as I mentioned to you before, we are going to jump right into this idea of you and poetry. Mm-hmm. So for those in the audience, students who may be watching, anyone else, writers, whatever, who may be watching, Dr. Warren, she has given me permission to call her Nagueyalti. She is a retired professor at Emory University in African-American Studies. So my first question for you is, out of all of the things that you could have been doing your entire career with a PhD and all of these amazing things, we'll have your bio in the description below the video for those who watch. Out of all the things that you could have been doing with all of the degrees and experience that you have and interest that you have, why did you choose poetry?
I was introduced to poetry in third grade with the assignment, write a poem, which I did, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so I have continued to do that. I do write in other genres, but poetry is the one that comes quickest. And for Black women in particular, with all the hats that we wear and the things that we do, it's the one that is the most manageable. You know, I've written poems on napkins and scrawled it on my hand just to keep from losing it, so that when I get the chance or the opportunity, I will go and then, write it. And you can't do that with other forms. With novels, with the short story, you need a piece of time where you can, manage what it is you're trying to do. And with poetry, that time is truncated. You can do it quickly. And that's why it's my favorite genre. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, because I remember those stages when poems were like between diaper changes and between jobs, on break, and that type of thing. And I think now my thing is I put notes in my phone. Right, I just type little notes in my phone. So yes, that's very fitting for our lives. I haven't learned yet to be that writer that gets up at 4:00 in the morning and writes for 3 hours. I want to do that when I grow up, but I'm not there yet. So in the meantime, this is what I'm working on. So we are going to jump right into Lodestar. So I want to show the folks my book. So this is my book, Lodestar. See there? I got all of my homework and everything. I have all my notes and everything with me. So we're going to jump right into Lodestar. And usually when I do this, I read a formal description of the book, to start the conversation. And then I give the poet my description of the book. But for yours, your project is a little different. And I decided for this, instead of reading a formal description of the book, I want to read the dedication because I think
Mhm.
it's so perfect. It says, dedicated to all the stars and black lights, those ultraviolet, infrared, radiant beings whose fluorescent essence reflects the black experience yesterday and today. Shine on. To me, that was a better description of your book, right? And then I want to share with you what my description was. I challenged myself as a poet, right, to write a blurb for every book that I use for this show. And so this is what I came up with for yours. You ready?
Mhm.
Lodestar courageously taps into the past and present struggle of Black life, Black love in the United States, and dares to project a powerful Black future. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And that's no flattery intended at all. That was what came to me because I always think to myself, if I had to tell somebody in a short little blip, like a few seconds, what the essence or the heart of a book was for me, right?
Mhm.
What would I say? And that's what it was. So usually I start with a book and I kind of like walk through the book in conversation for listeners and those who will be watching. But with yours, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to go to that last poem because
Mm.
my first question for you is, who is this poet and who is Nagueyalti? So if you would for me, please, I would like for you to read, look at me turning my pages. I would like for you to read the one. We're going to go all the way to the back to the last poem, and I'd like for you to read the one. And I want to tell the audience that this is not at all a spoiler. Trust me, the fact that she's reading the last poem is not at all a spoiler. But would you read that one for me?
I sure will.
Mhm.
The one. I'm the seventh daughter of a seventh mother born on this continent. First in 1777, delivered herself, slid out when her mama jumped overboard, saved by a sailor man who named her C, set her to work in the islands soon as she could walk. I'm the seventh one of seven sisters who saw 7 years of bad luck in a cracked up looking glass on a 7 foot wall smeared with woman blood. Sarah had babies, every one but one stillborn. In 1807, Esther lives, a 7 month wonder, slept in her mama's side as Sarah cut cane. Esther in 1827 bore the one with gray eyes, the one who sat beside the sea counting sunshine seeds. In 1857, this gray-eyed gal named Sophia gets Septima. Her long legs kicked midwife Annie. She's the one had Freedom's baby in 1887. Named that girl Liberty. Liberty went to Spelman, married a professor old enough to be her daddy. He lived to see Cinnabon in 1907, but Liberty left for Leslie, a brown-eyed, leggy woman who lived for a thrill. My mama came in 1937. Cinna named her Shirley, which mama changed to Shirley soon as she could. In the 60s, I'm the one named Spirit Rose. I'm the one walked the 7 hills of Cincinnati. I'm 7 times 7 to the power of 70. The future is the palm of my hand.
Okay. So I had something in mind before we started all of this, right?
Mm.
Okay, audience, like I said, if you hear an echo, it's just the ancestors that are coming in and joining us. So I had an idea of how I wanted to approach this poem when I read it and prepped for the interview. But after I heard you read it, something else occurred to me. We always talk about the seventh son of the seventh son, and the seventh in terms of sons and fathers and men, and how striking this is that it is the seventh daughter of a seventh mother, and then seven sisters. So you take that seven and put it into the female and the womanly context. And if I remember correctly, I don't know numerology perfectly, but from what I understand, seven is supposed to be a highly spiritual number in terms of a lot of spiritual energy. So that didn't even occur to me until you started reading and I heard it in your voice. So the first question I want to ask is this you? And is this your people?
No, it's you and every other Black woman.
Okay. All right. So let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. Because when the poem said at the end, the future is in the palm of my hand, I was like, oh, she's talking about me. I don't know who else she's talking about, but she's talking about me.
That's right.
Right. And how powerful it is. And it's so interesting because very often whether we consciously do it or not, sometimes we mourn the fact that we can't go back, or we don't know how to go back 7, 10, 12, whatever generations, right? Because of many of our histories in this country, whether it is the history of slavery and erasure, or whether it is migration, or whether it is the house burnt down and didn't nobody have a safe place to keep things, right? A lockbox or a security box. So very often, unlike some other folk, we can't trace all the way back. But to me, as a writer, one of the beautiful things about that is that you can still tap into something and recreate what that legacy is, which is what you do for me in this particular piece. That's what it does for me. So tell me, where did this piece come from?
Where do poems come from? I don't know. You know how sometimes you just get used, an idea comes and then you sit with it, or you put it away, or like you say, in my phone on the note app, I just have all kinds of ideas. So that was simply one that just came. We call it being used. The ancestors or spirit or somebody says, this is something that we need to know. And that's how it comes.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. It's interesting, the women who are in this lineage. When I asked you this question, was it you? You said, no, it's you. But I beg your pardon. I'm going to say it's us. Okay, I know it's your poem, but I'm going to pull rank right here as big sister and say that it's us, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I think the thing that is remarkable is that in this lineage, there are all kinds of women, right? There was the woman who was enslaved. There was the woman who was obedient. There was the woman who ran off and decided she was going to have her freedom however she wanted, whether other people approved of it or not. There was the woman who changed her name and her identity. There are all different kinds of women, not just one kind of woman in this lineage. And I dare say that all of us have that. We have all of those in our family. Some of them we talk about, some of them that we don't. But I think it's powerful to go back and reclaim them and honor them and pull them in. And what a mighty way to end a book, let alone a poem, and say the future is in the palm of my hand. Okay, so now we're going to do a Sankofa and flip back.
Okay.
For the audience, the book is written in past tense, present tense, and future tense. So the poem she just read for us is actually the only piece that is in future tense. So I want us to go all the way back to past tense, and let's go to page 13. She has no idea what I'm going to ask her to read. Ooh, Mississippi Woods. Speaking of that echo and what might be creeping in on this line, let's do Mississippi Woods.
Okay. Mississippi Woods. If woods could talk, wonder what would they say? Would they give away dark secrets, tell of night murders by nights in white sheets, or hounds chasing fleeing freedom-bound men? If woods could talk, would they tell of burning flesh? Would they say how Black blood fertilized their roots? Woods won't talk, but ancient tree trunks hold secrets of the South in these Mississippi woods.
Thank you. That's another way to honor the ancestors and our past. My question for you about this piece is, do you think, we know that there are secrets about the tragedy that the woods and the trees have to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there are other secrets about how to survive, or about where we come from, or the beauty and the power of where we come from? Do you think that they have other secrets for us too?
The trees, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. They have many secrets and many examples of how to survive. We know that if we are rigid and lightning strikes or the wind is blowing, we're likely to break. So one of the images of trees flowing and going with the wind is something that should speak to us about how to survive. And it's not, it's not to be rigid. The silence of trees. I mean, if you just, and I live in the woods, so I'm always dealing with the tree, the stillness and the silence of massive trees is so instructive, because if we can be still, particularly in this time, in this day, when there's so much chaos, if we can be still and if we can be silent, there is so much to be gained, from tranquility to ideas to creativity. All of that, at least for me, comes from stillness and silence. And the tree is the epitome of that.
I want to ask you to read one more piece from past tense. Coretta, would you do that for us, please?
Okay.
And I want to tell those of you who may be watching, the reason why I wanted you to read this piece is because a lot of people, when they think of civil rights, they think of a movement, right? They think of politics and all of those kinds of things. When we think of the King family, we often think of the civil rights movement. And you had such a beautiful way of making this real, personal, and everyday family and everyday people inside this movement. So would you share that, please?
Mm-hmm. Coretta, summer finds her pregnant again. Heat rash zigzags her long neck. She sings a lullaby to Yoki, who gurgles. Fat fingers find her baby teeth. Martin for dinner is late again. Cabbage and pork chops wait. Her lemon pie runs, and yellow kitchen steams like southern sun, a spotless spot. Walter Cronkite drones on black and white. When thunder, not from clouds, but crowds of white, not rain, but insane hate and fear erupts. Through smoke she sees her willow blue vase, grand heirloom, shattered in the rubble of the picture window, blown to tiny fragments. She watches him rush to her side. She whispers, dinner is ruined. Black people come with guns and bats. Men prepare to strike back. His hand halts them, says, don't go so low. Let us pray. They pray through clenched teeth. Armed Black men don't go away. They board up plate glass window hole. firearms ready. These men will stay. In their room, he rocks her to sleep. She dreams of pink sand beaches where gulls glide on turquoise seas. In her dream, she promises him from danger, she will never turn back or flee.
Ugh, that is just so beautiful to me. You catch that this is like an everyday man and woman, a husband and a wife. There's children, there's dinner to get on. There's that tender moment of being in someone's arms that you love. The idea of falling peacefully. Just those are the things that people often never think about. Right? That, movements are made of real people with real lives. And then very often when there's a tragedy, we remember the tragedy and the horrific circumstances of someone's death, like an assassination or what have you. But we forget the life that was lived. And the thing I love about this piece is that you made it so deeply personal, and everyday, as opposed to putting these two people up on a pedestal where we couldn't reach them. It was like we were right there in the house when the vase broke, which is really, really beautiful. Really beautiful. I'm sorry. I just get all excited. I get to be a fan on this platform because it's mine. So I can talk about all of the things that I love, right? So I do want to skip for a quick minute. And I want to talk about another piece in past tense. I don't want to read it because it's very long and we do have a limited time. But I do want to mention My Brother J, a trilogy. And I want to ask, why did you have to write this? And before you answer, while you're thinking about your answer, I want to let the audience know this piece, My Trilogy J, addresses the 80s and the movement around AIDS. And the tragedy was so many people dying and so many things being so deeply misunderstood about the disease and about, life at that particular time. So why did you have to write this piece?
That's interesting. Person that I know, I won't say a close friend, but a person that I know, she did an anthology of poetry about the epidemic, about AIDS. And she asked me to contribute a piece. And so as I thought about it, I had a student when I was I won't say that because then that might say who the student was. Anyway, before I came to Emory, I had a young student. And it was at the very early in the 80s, at the very beginning of the AIDS epidemic. And he passed away. And that, was just terrible. We didn't even know that he was ill. And so her asking for the poem and me thinking about this young student, that's what prompted the poem.
Mm-hmm. There are some people who may watch this and may not even remember that it was a time of such tremendous grief, which in some ways mirrors the time that we're in now of tremendous grief, where there were so many people dying and it was just continual. And then there was also this scare of, where does it come from? Who's got it? How can you get, there was all of this stuff. And it's interesting how these two things mirror each other, even though they're not at all the same, they mirror each other. But trying, in the midst of all of that confusion and grief, trying to hold on to the humanity of the matter. And I think that's what this piece does. I want to mention to the audience that the piece speaks about Jay from a little sister, from the father who doesn't understand him and does not understand that he is gay and can't accept it, as well as from the mother who is very accepting and who understands that this is her son always her son, and that is first, in their relationship. And so I just thought it was really interesting how that piece mirrors so many things that are going on now. And I also admired the fact that you spoke about this from three different voices, that were all connected by Jay and this particular tragedy. I thought that that was really interesting. So from there, I want us to move to present tense. And I would like for you to read out loud after Orlando.
After Orlando, how queer our voices are when we explain hate, how queer the other side of love is. In a pristine green blue globe of life, how utterly ugly, lackluster, convoluted a heart, how it cracks, attacks, cracks, how queer a world queering, how queer the children's questions, our queer answers. We are all queer. We died there, a Disney World away, in toilet stalls, dancing on a floor, queerly dodging killjoy. We know it matters not who we love, just that we love, not who we kiss or how, just that lips meet in human longing. God is queer, queerest spirit in us. Only we can transmute hate to love, from straight and narrow to a wide open queer world of peace, joy, power.
So I'm assuming you wrote that based on the Pulse tragedy.
Mhm. Exactly. It's just so many things prompted by, I'm beginning to think, not prompted by hate so much as prompted by fear. It's just amazing to me how people are afraid of anything that's different. And I don't know what prompted the shooting at the UPS, you know, but 8 people did, and the people at the grocery store. It's insane. And it can't be, I don't think it can be hatred because many of the people, they don't even know them. So what is there to fear? And it seems to me that it's all based in difference. If you are not me, then I'm afraid of you. And the irony is, you are me and I am you. It's mind boggling. But yeah, that nightclub killing was just so awful. But then again, all killings are, you know, and I think it's based on fear. How do you shoot someone when their hands are raised? You're afraid that they're coming at you. You kill someone, they're trying to run away. I think this time is, you're right. There are connections between now and the early 80s when, everybody was so afraid of AIDS and how do I catch it and don't be around the person who has it. Uh,
But it goes way back past the 80s.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Think about all of the massacres
Mhm.
that have occurred, whether it was Rosewood or
Mhm.
Black Wall Street in
Wall Street.
Tulsa.
Or the
This,
Middle Passage.
mhm, mhm. This idea of a gun and death equating to power as
Mhm.
opposed to equating to fear. You equate
Mhm.
it to fear, related to
Mhm.
fear. Other
Mhm.
people relate it to power. And it just seems like relating it to power is the larger dynamic in which we live in.
But the need for that power is stimulated by fear, I think. And I also see the gun as a masculine phallic symbol. So it's more than just the power to kill, or the power to protect, but for me, it's all connected with sexual power. And that's why people go insane when you start talking about gun control. It's like you're trying to control, you're trying to control their genitals, you know? It's just, it's maddening. It is maddening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want us to move to one more piece. So, we started in the future, we bounced back to past tense, and the pieces that she's reading for us now are in present tense. And one of the notes that I put on this page of the poem, I'm sorry, I have to write in my books, it says perfect pandemic response. So, would you read All In Together, March 2020?
All in together, March 2020. We are not all in this together. Some of we are homeless. Some of we lost our jobs. Some of we live on the streets. Some of we are dying. Some of we live in $50,000 underground bunkers with heated pools, game rooms, pantries stocked with abundance. Some of we need food, paper towels, toilet paper. We are not all in this together because disease does indeed discriminate, attacking poor, malnourished, uninsured in this world's richest country. In this country, we are not all in this together, and I am tired of hearing it repeated. We are the shithole country now.
Mm. Okay, I don't think we even need to discuss that one. We're just going to leave that right there. I hear that really strong. I just heard that really strong echo. Like we said, we just claiming that there's ancestors coming through to bless it. So we just going to leave that right where it is because we're right smack dab in the middle of all of that. And I don't think we've even seen the repercussions of what this past year has been. But like I said, I thought that that was the perfect pandemic response. So I want to ask you to read one other piece. We're going to flip all the way back to the beginning, page 7. Lodestar. Lodestar.
Okay.
And I have to tell the audience that this is actually the first poem in her book that I'm asking her to read last. And the reason why I'm asking you to read it last is because we've been through some like really dark places in this discussion. But to me, this poem holds the light and it's good medicine and it's a prescription, right? So that's why I wanted to ask you to read that last.
Okay. Lodestar. In a galaxy of stars spangling across a midnight sky, you are my guiding light, polar axis, MC squared, my one to the first power. You brought me from the bowels of muddy deep river country, south of hell. You pointed up the freedom train's conductor, stealing through dark trees, along starlit streams. You just kept on shining, high up there, holy. Shine on me, shine in me, ancient, sagacious eye of God, shine in me.
It wasn't until I read that piece for like maybe the second or third time that I really made note. Oh, she says shine on me. And she also says shine in me. Tell us what the difference is.
The light and the spirit and the energy of the ancestors of divinity, what some call God, is both external and internal. So externally, for all the people who have been and are yet to be, and then for all of the spirit that imbibes us as human beings. So both internal and external.
Internal and external. Thank you. So what do you want people to walk away with from this book? What do you want them to walk away with?
Walk away with the knowledge that we as a people can do anything and have done so much. We have not, in the face of adversity, lost our way or lost ourselves, that we have done more than survive. We've been able to thrive. And I think we've been able to thrive because our culture is one that embraces the collective. It's us. It's rarely ever I or me. And I think that's where our strength lies. So the stars, the power, it's in us as a collective.
And after all, the future is in the palm of my hand, or maybe I should say our hands, right? Wow. Yeah. I'm not afraid of quiet spaces. I think sometimes we just need to let something settle in, right? And I think that that's a perfect place to close. Perfect place to close, a blessed space to close this space. So, wow. I just want to tell folks that if you want to know more about Dr. Warren, there will be more that's in the description below the video. I do want to show the beautiful book again with all of the colors. I hear that she's also working on a novel, but I'm going to leave that right there and leave her to her privacy to finish that when she will. No pressure, but I heard she's working on a novel. And thank you, Dr. Warren, for coming again, for reminding us of our humanity, even in the midst of tragedy. Thank you for reminding us to claim all that we are and all of our ancestors and those who have been before us. Thank you to whatever echo this is on the line that has been messing with us. I noticed that it only happened on my voice, and I think maybe that was them telling me to be quiet and not talk so much so that the guests could talk more, because sometimes I get too excited, right? So thank you again for spending your time with us and for doing this work and for reminding us of how much we are in a world that tries to tell us that we're not. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this, bringing poetry to the people. That's very much needed.
Mm-hmm. And it's for everybody. It's not just for people at the university or people at the open mics. It's for anybody and everybody. And it reminds me that, just like you said, that poetry fits our lives because sometimes you can only get a little bit in. Mm-hmm. That's for the poet who's writing, but it's also for the person who needs a little bit of inspiration. Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't have time to go to a 2-hour church service, or you don't have time to read 100 pages. Sometimes a poem will just do it for you. How about that? All right, folks. So if you like what you heard and what you saw, please like and share. You can comment below. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to find out about the new episodes that are coming up. And thank you for joining us in this sacred space called Breakdown.